My lovely audience, we present to you our runners-up of the Best SRE Project of the Year award from the in-house category Standard Chartered Bank. Joining us in a few moments is Mr. Richard Hall, Global Head, Technology Support Functions and Data at Standard Chartered Bank. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Richard Hall.
Firstly, on behalf of Standard Chartered Bank, I'd like to thank the DevOps India Summit Awards for awarding SRE program within group functions at Standard Chartered, runner-up place in the SRE category. I'm going to talk a little bit about project and our program, but firstly, I'll introduce myself. My name is Richard Hall. I run the transformation, cloud, and resilience programs within the group functions organization at Standard Chartered. We started our SRE journey probably around about 18 months ago. We had been building an automation team in the support organization, primarily focused at automating away manual tasks. And we decided that actually SRE was something that we felt would really change the way that we actually approach support within the organization. Let me tell you a little bit about group functions. So group functions is a horizontal organization supporting the global business functions within Standard Chartered. So we support all of the supporting group functions, so things like finance and risk, compliance, liquidity, HR, property, audit, etc. So we have a very, very broad footprint of applications. We cover all sorts of different types of applications, from in-house built sort of cloud native platforms all the way through to some very large, very legacy platforms running on hosted mainframes, hosted platforms within our own data center. So our portfolio was very diverse. The challenges for bringing SRE into the organization was not going to be insignificant. So we felt that we could try initially to start the program by creating a pilot scheme where we picked five different applications that had a very different footprint. So one was a very modern DevOps-oriented cloud-native platform. One was a vendor platform running on our own proprietary hardware. One was a in-house built platform running in our data center, and one was a SaaS platform running on a hosted service by a third-party vendor. We established a small team of SRE evangelists who initially were very new to SRE. So we spent quite a lot of time building up some training capabilities for these guys. The approach was then to start small and basically deploy our model once we had defined it across the entire of the functions footprint. Just to give you an idea of the number of applications, it's around about 250 applications that we support across the entire group functions space within Standard Chartered. So we started small, 5 applications with a small team of evangelists. The evangelist's role was basically to create a framework that we could then reuse every time we went in to deploy SRE onto a new application. So the first stage of the process was basically to build that framework. So we spent probably around about 3 to 4 months designing a framework, going through a few iterations, failing a couple of times. But we designed this framework to really enable us to sort of prove to people that we could deploy SRE, as we had a lot of reticence initially when we started. People thought SRE was just a rebadging of production support, whereas actually it's a complete change of mindset. And that was key to our success, I think, was the fact that what we had to do was change people's mindset away from thinking they're either a support person or a development person, and moving the needle on actually getting these teams to work alongside each other as engineers themselves. So whether they were support engineers or functional engineers, they both basically worked with the same set of goals and the same set of priorities, albeit one with a focus on stability and the other with a focus on creating additional functional change. So we decided foundationally what we would do is put education at the heart of our program. So we designed, in conjunction with an external vendor and also our own internal learning academy, a series of educational programs for our SRE program. 3 levels. We had a foundational level, we had a practitioner level, and we had a leadership level, where parties that took part in this training got certified. And the training was fairly comprehensive across the basic concepts of SRE through to more advanced approaches. Particularly the practitioner program was around a 100-day program with extensive check-ins throughout the program and a lot of education on the way. Part of what we wanted the teams to do as they gradually became more accustomed to the SRE principles and practices was to actually showcase what they were doing back to the central management team. So on a periodic basis, we actually got the teams to present back to us how they had taken what they've learned during the training program and applied it into their day-to-day activities once they got back to their platforms. We had originally, prior to our SRE program, set up an automation team that had focused on automation. And obviously, with education, with automation, we had the building blocks and a framework. We had the building blocks to establish an SRE program that could start small and gradually accelerate, as I said previously. So the first 5 applications that we picked, we started by doing a deep dive on the capabilities that were in existence at the moment. So everything from the DevOps maturity, so how far down the DevOps tool chain the platform was in terms of its usage, everything from incident history to change history. We looked at what we call the level 3 backlogs, so the backlog of sort of operational issues that had or had not been addressed, and started to bring some of the SRE principles into our thinking. We identified some low-hanging fruit. So in most cases, we started with observability. So we started looking at the monitoring that was available and operational on the platforms, and where we could identify how we would fix things and bring the level of monitoring up to a level where we could start to identify issues before they became problems. We then moved on to defining SLIs and SLOs. Again, making sure that the quality of SLI that we actually defined, so the service level indicators that we were defining, were relevant and would actually give us information that could enable us to manage the platform appropriately. And instead of it just being a basic metric around the performance of the infrastructure, actually looking at identifying SLIs that would tell us whether a platform was degrading or not. Once you start to capture that information around the SLIs, you can start forecasting whether you're seeing a degradation in service. You can start doing trend analysis as to whether your platform is degrading in terms of its performance. This then started to create much more of a focus from the teams on understanding how their platforms worked. As we built that capability, we then started looking at things like how can we reduce some of the toil that's running on these platforms? So we focused on low-hanging fruit on the observability side, and then we focused on low-hanging fruit on the toil side, and started to actually give the SRE the SRE teams the ability to start fixing some of the outstanding toil issues themselves. I'll give you an example. So we have a fairly modern platform that we gave the SRE the ability to change the code themselves. They were given a branch in the source code platform where they could make changes. Their changes were then quality assured by the delivery team and then ran through the entire DevOps lifecycle, automated lifecycle. So the automated testing, the automated deployment, etc. And we now have a situation where items that used to sit on a backlog for 90 days plus can be fixed and deployed into production within 24 to 48 hours. So a big change in the way that we operate. The other thing that we really focused on, and I sort of mentioned this at the beginning, was how do we change people's mindset? I mean, SRE we can train. You can train all of the capability into people, but getting not only the SRE teams, but the delivery teams and the business to understand the implications of SRE, the implications of bringing in error budgets, the implications of what that means to them, and what it actually means to share reliability and stability objectives across both the delivery and the support teams was quite a significant challenge. And I think it's the area that actually most people struggle when deploying SRE is how do we change people's mindset such that they don't think this is just a rebadging exercise. So we spent quite a lot of time educating from the business teams. So we actually talked to the business teams about the impact of an error budget breach on their ability to deploy functional change. We discussed the same with the delivery teams, and we also discussed the implications to the SRE teams, because obviously the power when an error budget is breached sits with the SRE team rather than with the functional change teams. That has sort of historically been the case. And what we found was we spent a lot of time building capabilities such that the business can see exactly where their error budget stands at any point in time. We agreed timelines for reset with the business so that when a certain period of time had completed, and if the error budget hadn't been breached during that time, we would reset it back to zero. And actually, by engaging the businesses up front and actually getting them involved, it has proved to be an extremely successful journey for all of us. And what we found was that actually a lot of our business partners were really supportive of this, because at the end of the day, they rely on stability and their platforms being there for them to be able to do their job. So that was a really, really important thing for us, was to engage the business early in the journey. The other things that we did focus on, and this was something that when we first started our journey, we spent a bit of time talking to Google, who obviously were the original authors of SRE. And some of the things that they recommended we focus on were things like getting blameless postmortems in place. Google basically told us that the way that Google views postmortems is it's the best learning tool that you have in identifying how, even when somebody makes a manual error, how your processes and procedures have allowed that manual error to happen. And if you can do a postmortem on that situation where maybe a operator has done something wrong, and look at how did your process allow that operator to do something wrong, rather than focus on the person doing something incorrect, and you fix the process so that it actually prevents that person being able to do that in the future, how powerful that was. So one of the things that we introduced very early into our process was a blameless postmortem model. It's quite a challenge to get people out of the who did what type conversation, but it is actually really, really important. And once you start focusing on the actual cause of the problem and how you can prevent it from happening again in the future without worrying about who did what, then actually the power comes into the hands of the SRE teams, and you can start actually addressing those things. So moving on to sort of the second point. So why do I think Standard Chartered's model is unique? It's not completely unique, but I think what we've done by putting education at the heart of our program and really, really building that educational knowledge very, very early in our process, we actually broke the back of a lot of the challenge with getting people's mindsets to change. We had a number of situations where we were deploying SRE onto some old legacy applications. And the general consensus was we'd never be able to actually deploy SRE on some of these applications. And because we'd built up that knowledge base, we were able to convince people that actually it was possible to do it. So we've done it on modern applications. We've done it on very legacy applications. We had a data warehouse that ran in Africa and had been probably 20 years in operation or 15 years in operation, very old technology, pretty unreliable platform, often had a lot of issues. So we deployed the majority of the SRE practices into that platform and have completely changed the way that platform is now perceived by its business partners. I actually had a business partner tell me for the first time ever, when he did a service management meeting with his team, he was told that we'd had 5 incidents and he didn't know about them. It's just that the system had actually auto-healed itself. And so by deploying some of these automation technologies and some of these techniques, we were able to actually turn an application that was historically extremely unreliable into an application that became highly reliable and actually fixed itself when things went wrong. So I think from that perspective, bringing, and that was an initiative that was run entirely by the SRE team themselves. They came up with the idea, they deployed the software, they wrote the scripts that were required to do the auto healing, and actually really, really changed the way that the business perceived the platform. So I think that's certainly something that we've seen on a number of occasions across a number of applications, is that with the right mindset, you can pretty much bring SRE techniques and practices to any type of application. So I think where we are now within the organization, we have now deployed SRE to just under 100 applications across group functions. We are aggressively pushing forward with deploying it across all of our applications within the function. What we've also done within technology and innovation at Standard Chartered is we've now created a community of practice. I am one of the sponsors of the SRE community of practice, which is deployed across all of our business functions. So our CCIB, which is our sort of corporate and commercial and institutional banking function, and also CPBB, which is our consumer private and business banking organization. So as well as those, across our enterprise technology function, which is our sort of core infrastructure and cloud capability, we now have a community of practice that are basically sharing best practices across the entire bank. So we've established this community of practice. It is looking at things like best practice, observability by design, so trying to build some observability by design capabilities that we then reuse across the entire organization. SRE by design, so thinking about observability, thinking about SLIs, how do we measure, how do we make sure that we know exactly what we have, what attributes we want to capture when we're designing the system rather than plugging them in at the end. So actually trying to bring some of these practices into the organization and sharing across the group. We've had some SRE specific hackathons, which have driven some really interesting ideas out that are now being adopted across some of the functions within the bank. And it's really helping us also support our cloud first strategy. So Standard Chartered is now committed over the next 5 years to get 75% of our compute onto cloud. And having the SRE teams aligned to the delivery and the functional change teams, as we start to move applications from sort of historical architectures into cloud native architectures, getting the SREs involved at the design time is proving to be a crucially important thing for us as we evolve our strategy. So what's next for us? So what is next for us is we continue to deploy SRE out to all of the applications that are remaining. We are integrating, we're now looking at exactly how we can bring some of the DevSecOps capabilities into our SRE practices. We are integrating command and control center. So we have a central command and control center that does 24/7 monitoring of our critical applications. We're bringing that and our service management function and the SRE teams much more aligned together so that we have a very, very service-focused organization. And the main thing that I would say that has really, really, really been apparent from the program that we've run is that the perception of what was historically production support services within Standard Chartered has massively changed. We are now seen to be dynamic, we're now seen to be responsive, we're seen to be proactive, and we're seen to be really focused on changing and making sure that our applications are operational at all times. To give you an illustration of our stability levels, we now have not had, touch wood, within our function, a major incident in 2 years. So as we further deploy SRE, we are further in strengthening our stability and reliability of our platforms. And I think, the feedback that we've received from our end business, so the actual business customers that provide the services to our customers, to our clients, I think that has been the real benefit to the bank. And as we continue on this journey, I can only see that getting better. So once again, I'd just like to thank the DevOps India Summit Awards for us winning the runners-up position in the SRE category. And I wish everybody a safe and good day. Thank you.
And now we present to you our winner from the in-house category, who is joining us to share his deep insights on his project journey. Let us invite onto the e-stage the winner of the Best Usage of AI, ML, IoT and Data Science in DevSecOps and SRE Award. Please welcome Mr. Ashish Agarwal, Global Director, Digital Innovations and DevOps Transformation at CSG International Corporation. Welcome Ashish to the DOIS House. Over to you.
We are very excited to receive this award and thankful to the DevOps India Summit for this recognition. So as it is, this particular concept came out, there were some challenges and pain points which resulted into seeding of this concept. So let us see what those challenges were really, which actually brought this particular solution into a good shape. So the reality today is that in any organization, the delivery or the operations team is a combination of medium experienced and junior team members with very scarce SMEs or experts whose time is really precious. Further, the teams are geographically dispersed across the globe because we operate in follow the sun approach with experts or specialists dispersed across the globe. So this results into a massive handoffs between the team members, and also it results into the handoffs of service requests and incidents or defects, as well as which results into a long queues and work in process items. So the teams also operate under strict SLAs, which are bound by the SLAs for any tickets or incidents or service requests, as well as stringent release timelines or stringent patch timelines, which are there in the delivery teams for any defects to get turned around. So these all, along with the circumstances of teams operating in silos, whether they are account teams or project teams within the organization, this all results into very anxious teams, which are at the verge of burnaround at times, as well as a very frustrated and furious customer at times. So this all results into a massive pressure on the team. So what was the solution that we started as a starting point for coming out with this machine learning based resolution optimizer? We thought that we have got a wealth of resolutions, whether they are for defects, incidents, or service requests, which are existing within our organization, projects, or accounts. Why not we leverage those insights from these wealth of resolutions that are existing within the organization to come out as a starting point for any team member for these past resolved incidents to take up as a solution to solve the resolution. So that is what we started to address this challenge across. And now, Sarup, could you explain how this machine learning based resolution optimizer works end to end and what our ML architecture is?
Thank you, Ashish. Let's see how our end to end machine learning resolution optimizer works. So today we have a lot of tools or applications in the market available for incident management or for defect management or for service request management. Irrespective of the tools that we use in our organization, we can stream, let's say, the past 6 months incidents of defects data from those two applications or tools into our stack of machine learning algorithms. So when this data is fed into our stack of machine learning algorithms, our algorithms will learn from it. Basically, it will classify the data. It will try to understand the similarity between the historical defects or incidents. And then at the end, once our stack of machine learning algorithms are trained, it will result in a trained machine learning model. So on the other side, we have our development and the operation team members who on a daily basis work on defects or incidents or on service requests. So when they receive any new defect or service request from their tools or applications, they feed that information or they feed that details into our trained machine learning model. So when the new details are fed into our trained machine learning model, our trained machine learning model basically tries to analyze it. It will classify it, and it will from the classified bucket, it will try to find the similar historical incident or incidents from the past, which referring to which our development and operation members can quickly learn from it, can get to know what were the historical resolutions, what were the solutions that were given to such kind of incidents or defects or service requests. Based on that, they can quickly resolve their current defect, incident or service request, and put back their resolution updates or their solution back into their tool. And also we have a corrective feedback mechanism in place to understand, let's say if there is some inappropriate recommendations given by a trained model, or there may be something way away from what the development or operation members were expecting. In those cases, we tune or fine tune our stack of machine learning algorithms via this corrective feedback mechanism, so that our algorithms or stack of algorithms are rightly trained, and inappropriate recommendations are not given in the future. So this is how our end-to-end flow looks like of our resolution optimizer. If we want to, now let's look into the solution, ML solution detailed architecture. As I mentioned earlier, we all have incidents or defect or service request management tools from where we stream or we extract the data into our own machine learning database for training purpose. The extracted data is now fed into our natural language processing algorithm. So basically, the natural language processing algorithm converts our textual data into numerical arrays, and numerical arrays which are understandable by our other machine learning algorithms. So the processed data or the transformed data is now fed into our classification algorithm. So this classification algorithm tries to learn and classify any incoming or any historical defects, service requests or incidents into right categories and subcategories. Also, the transformed data is also fed into our machine learning similarity algorithm, which will try to understand and also learn the similarities between the incidents, defects or service requests. So all this, when our data is passed through all this stack of algorithms, it will result in a trained machine learning model. So today we have an Angular GUI where we input our query, or we give our incident details or defect details or service details are put in our Angular GUI, and that input is sent to our trained machine learning model. So our trained machine learning model analyzes it, classifies it, finds the historical similar near matching incident, defects or service requests from the past, and it will show it on a result screen in a descending similarity score manner. So referring to these results, if I am a person who is working on defects, or if I'm a person who is working on service requests or incidents, I can quickly learn from these historical details, and I can quickly resolve the current incident, defect or service request which is assigned to me. So this is our machine learning solution detail architecture. And Ashish, we have adopted many DevOps practices, and also which has helped us to achieve great business outcomes. So can you please shed some light on that, Ashish?
Yeah, so the resolution optimizer typically supports the development and operations team for the resolution of any defect, incident, service request or tickets via using all three ways of DevOps within the technical value stream. The technical value stream could be from development to QA to deployment team to really the end user, or that is for the defects journey, or it could be the end user raising any resolution ticket or incident, and that comes to our operations team. They resolve it out and it goes back to the end user. So those could be our technical value stream. It supports all three principles of DevOps, or all three ways of working DevOps in these two value streams. So the first principle of DevOps, the faster flow of business value in these two value streams is achieved via faster mean time to resolution, reduced work in progress, reduced handoffs between the team members, as well as reduced odd hour calls to any of the experts or SMEs, also increase in the right first time resolutions. So via all these combination of these parameters, we are able to achieve faster flow of business value. The second principle, which is the principle of faster feedback from right to left, is achieved via faster and most relevant resolution feedback, which is provided to any team member for the defects, incidents, tickets, or service requests. And via using that feedback, they are able to resolve it faster. So the third principle of DevOps, so the third way of doing DevOps, which is the principle of continual learning and experimentation. This is achieved via promoting the growth mindset culture within the project account or the organization, and actually killing the fixed mindset within the team members. And this is actually typically achieved by solution acting as a trusted self-service knowledge buddy available to any team member on their desk on demand 24/7 for resolving any of the tickets, defects, or service requests. It also elevates the local knowledge or local discoveries which are within the silos within the projects or accounts sitting across the organization. So those are elevated across the organization, which can be used across by all the people. So that way, it is really bringing the principle of continuous learning and experimentation via usage of this machine learning based resolution optimizer by our development and operations team. Now, that was the part about bringing value by this product. Now, typically evolving this resolution optimizer itself, we have done 3 major experiments and hosts of iterations to really bring it to a shape that it is today and results into a business value to the operations and development team. So these iterations and these 3 experiments were done again using DevOps techniques. The majority of them that we started the first experiment with Jira as a tool. So our solution was becoming more tightly coupled to Jira. So we handled that via bringing machine learning as a concept. So rather than using an open source utility as a plugin for Jira, we brought machine learning and a GUI, which we actually progressed that machine learning algorithms in the third experiment, and the GUI became more of Angular. So this all resulted into a typical loose tool coupling. When I say tool, it is defect or incident management tool, as well as progressive technology adoption when we went through these 3 experiments towards the implementation. The second thing that we saw, that when we were using Jira, there were massive handoffs between the team member and the Jira admin, because they didn't allow us to do the searches within Jira. It could result into a risk of bringing Jira down. So we mitigated this via bringing another database, as Surup sold, for our ML based solution. So there was a segregation of our database with the Jira database. So that resulted into mitigation of handoffs as well as mitigation of tool stability risk. The third thing that we adopted was the 2 principles of DevOps: faster feedback, the second principle, as well as quick turnaround of changes. So this we achieved via, we started with the first experiment, there was no feedback mechanism established. In the second experiment, we got weekly meetings set up with the team that resulted into slow feedback. Third experiment, we got daily feedback meeting set up with the team, and this resulted into a faster feedback coming from that, and we were turning around the changes that they were requesting across faster to the team members. The system of engagement, which is our GUI, we used to turn around the changes in a day's time, and the system of records, which is your algorithms and the database, those changes we were able to turn it around in 3-4 days. So this resulted into a massive win-win attitude, and it is really the 2 principles of DevOps that were followed out here. The fourth concept was we adopted fail fast technique via these experiments and iterations, and progressive learning out of each of these experiments or iterations, and we progressed well. And also one of the things that we took care was the adoption of the early adopter project, where we are going to implement and bring it to business, is cautiously and rightly chosen, as is needed for any transformation or any change to be brought across. So we did that. Wherever there was more problems and the team was struggling, that's the place that we brought this across. And that resulted into a massive adaptability across the organization. One more point to note is that in this particular evolution journey of this solution, we have adopted out of the 24 DevOps key capabilities, which are mentioned in the Accelerate book by Nicole, as well as she talks about them in the State of DevOps reports as well. She belongs to DORA. Now it's with Google DORA. Out of those 24 key DevOps capabilities, we have used 15 DevOps capabilities in the evolution of this solution. And to mention here, all the 5 DevOps capabilities that are listed on the culture side have been adopted. So that resulted into a massive adaptability, and that's the solution journey of our machine learning based resolution optimizer. Now, Swaroop, could you bring the quantifiable business results that the resolution optimizer has achieved?
Yes, Ashish. So we implemented and we started using resolution optimizer in one of our accounts in CSG, and like typically it used to take around 283 minutes, roughly around 283 minutes to resolve any service request that was being logged. So with the use of resolution optimizer, and when the team started using resolution optimizer, the average resolution time of our service request came down to roughly around 85 minutes. And this was one of the significant quantifiable outcomes that we got to see. So roughly, like, we were able to reduce the average resolution time by roughly around 70%. So this is one of the quantifiable outcome that we got to see by using the resolution optimizer. And with all these discussions, we are excited and we are honored to win the award in this the DevOps India Summit 2021. And we, on behalf of CSG, would like to thank the DevOps India Summit. Thank you very much.